The spark before the storm, the stars shimmered in eerie silence above the edge of human space, where no beacon lit the darkness and no treaties held sway. On the deck of the starcruiser Resolute, Captain Elias Cooper stood still, his silhouette outlined by the soft glow of interface panels. His jaw was set tight as he stared out the view. Every fiber of his being told him that this calm, this strange stillness, was just the breath before a storm. Reports had come from the fringe colonies. Entire settlements gone dark. No distress signals, no bodies, just silence. And in that silence, a pattern, all near ancient ruins once belonging to a long-extinct species known only as the HFY. The last message intercepted from the outpost on Gliese 7 had just 3 words before cutting off entirely. Zyre has awakened. No one on Earth knew who or what Zyre was, but Cooper knew what instinct felt like, and his gut screamed that whatever it wasn't something they were prepared for. The High Command wanted surveillance, reconnaissance, wait-and-see diplomacy. Cooper ignored all of it. He wasn't about to let another colony vanish on his watch. He turned to his pilot, a quiet woman named Tanis with ice-blue eyes and nerves of steel. "Plotter jumped straight to Gliese, he said. "We're not waiting for a committee to debate this." Tanis nodded once and set to work. The crew, a rough-knit team of veterans and new recruits, moved without hesitation. They'd seen too many horrors to trust silence. Even the ship itself seemed to hum with restrained urgency as it prepared for the jump. As the Resolute tore through hyperspace, Cooper reviewed what little data they had. Faint power surges had been recorded near the ruins, the kind of energy spikes associated with ancient tech, powerful, unstable, and often buried for good reason. Zyre, the name whispered across fragments of intercepted comms, always appeared near these anomalies, and then nothing, like the stars themselves had swallowed everything whole when the ship dropped out of hyperspace. Gliese 7 spun lazily below, wrapped in thick, unnatural storm clouds. Cooper stared at the sensors. The orbital satellite network was gone. No signals, no orbiting debris, just empty space where civilization had been. "Bring us closer," he said. Low orbit. The ship inched toward the planet, piercing the upper atmosphere. The clouds churned violently, as if repelling their approach. Lightning arced in unnatural colors, violet, green, gold, flashing across miles in complete silence. Then, something shimmered through the clouds. "Contact," Tanis shouted. "Unidentified object fast, massive, closing on us." A shape tore through the sky toward them, a spear-shaped alien vessel unlike anything in known records. Its hull pulsed with biomechanical muscle, and along its spine flickered red lights in hypnotic rhythm. "Evasive now," Cooper barked. "Get us clear." The Resolute banked hard, barely dodging the incoming blast. The alien weapon sliced through atmosphere like a beam of raw thought, not light. A psychic weapon. The crew reeled, screaming, as images not their own invaded their mind, cities burning, stars screaming, worlds weeping in silence. Then it stopped. The silence returned. Cooper slammed his fist against the console. "We've got to get boots." On the ground, minutes later, the dropship Banshee launched from the Resolute, plunging through the turbulent sky. Cooper, Tanis, and a squad of hardened Marines huddled tight as the craft shook violently from atmospheric resistance. Outside, lightning streaked close enough to make the hull glow. They landed hard in the ruins of what had once been Gliese 7's central hub. The city was gone, buildings half melted, streets twisted and cratered. In the center stood a towering spire, black stone humming with red veins of energy. Around it, suspended in air like lifeless marionettes, floated the missing colonists. Eyes open, unmoving, not dead but not alive. What the hell is this?" one Marine whispered, stepping back in horror. Then came the voice, not heard, but felt. "I see you." Cooper's mind reeled as the presence touched him. Alien, cold, ancient, yet curious. The sky split open above them, and a massive shape descended, twice the size of a dreadnought, humanoid in form but clad in armor, made from living metal and fire, eyes like suns. The earth trembled as it landed in silence. This was no war machine. This was Zyre. "I am the last champion of the HFY." The being spoke aloud this time, voice like metal grinding over stone, "and humanity has dared awaken me." The Marines raised their weapons. Cooper held up a hand. "Wait." Zyre turned his massive head toward Cooper. "You are different. I have seen your kind. Screaming, dying, running, but not you." "I came to stop the dying," Cooper said. "Whatever this is, you're not taking more of us." Zyre stepped forward. With each motion, energy pulsed through the ground like the heartbeat of a god. "Then prove yourself," Zyre said. One champion, one battle, for humanity's right to exist. Around them, the colonists slowly descended, unconscious but alive. The rules were clear. Zyre would fight not for conquest, but for judgment. Cooper swallowed hard. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the fastest, but he was human, and that meant he didn't quit. He stepped forward, fists clenched, and met Zyre's burning gaze. Without flinching, I accept. And with those words, the battle for humanity began. The arena of worlds, the storm peeled back from the clouds like a curtain being drawn by unseen hands. A dome of translucent energy rose high above the ruined skyline of Glycerin, enclosing Cooper and Zyre in a silent sphere of gravity. Stillness, time felt slower within, as if the galaxy was holding its breath. Outside the dome, the Resolute hovered at high altitude, its crew watching in tense silence. Tannis stared down through the sensors, jaw tight, knowing there was nothing she could do now but bear witness. Cooper stepped forward into the center of the arena, the dust swirling at his boots. He could feel Zyre's presence like a storm cloud pressing against his skin. The alien champion stood perfectly still, yet there was nothing lifeless about him. His living armor shifted with each breath, glowing faintly with veins of energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. He wasn't a machine, he was something older, something created for war by a race that had long since vanished. "You know this is madness," said a voice in Cooper's comms. It was General Rue back on Earth, patching in through encrypted channels. "You're not a super soldier, Cooper. You're not even augmented. You're human," Cooper cut in. "That's exactly why I'm the right one." He disabled the comm. Zyre extended one massive hand. From it materialized a curved weapon unlike anything Cooper had seen, half-blade, half-lash, and entirely alive. It shimmered as if made of starfire and bone. In answer, Cooper slid his combat blade from his back, its surface scratched from years of service, its grip worn by his own sweat. It was an old weapon, but it had served him well. Today it had to serve all of humanity. "Contest is sacred," Zyre said, his voice echoing unnaturally in the dome. "No interference. No retreat. Victory grants survival. Failure ends your species." "Just like that?" Cooper asked, circling. "There must be balance." Zyre replied. "The HRL believed in earned survival. Power must be tested, not assumed. This was our creed." Or Cooper muttered, adjusting his stance. "Let's find out what humanity's made of." Zyre moved first. He was faster than Cooper expected, blindingly fast. The air screamed as the alien's blade lashed toward him like a whip of plasma and metal. Cooper ducked, rolled, and sprang up behind Zyre, striking hard at his exposed flank. His blade bounced off with a flash of sparks. Zyre didn't flinch. He spun, arm wide, catching Cooper across the ribs. The impact sent Cooper skidding across the cracked ground, blood in his mouth before he even hit the floor. He groaned, pushing himself up, vision swimming. The crowd outside the dome, crew, Marines, civilians who had been rescued, watched in horror. "You fight with instinct," Zyre said. "But instinct is not enough." Cooper stood, wiping blood from his lip. "It's not instinct," he said, through gritted teeth. "It's heart." He charged again, this time using speed instead of strength, weaving between Zyre's strikes. The aliens' attacks were powerful, perfect, but they followed rhythm, predictable in a way no human would. Cooper exploited it. He struck, feinted, retreated, struck again, 100 times. Never the same move twice. He was pain. He was breath. He was a blur of survival and stubbornness made flesh. Zyre staggered back once, just once, but it was enough to shift the tide. "You adapt," Zyre said, watching him carefully. "Your kind learns as it bleeds. That's how we've survived everything thrown at us." Cooper gasped. "Fire, flood, famine, ourselves. We get knocked down, but we get up." Zyre tilted his head slightly, curious. Then he roared. Dome vibrated with the sound as energy flooded into Zyre's weapon, transforming it into a searing arc of molten plasma. He charged, no longer testing, now unleashing fury. Cooper barely dodged. The ground behind him exploded into shards. He rolled again, tossed his blade, grabbed a jagged piece of debris and stabbed it deep into Zyre's side. Zyre bellowed in pain. Outside the dome, Tannis's hands clenched into fists. "Come on, Elias. Come on." Zyre reached down and yanked the shard from his side. For a moment, the giant stood still, blood, if it could be called that, pouring from his wound, glowing like liquid fire. "You hurt me," he said, stunned. "No champion has ever." Cooper limped closer, favoring his side. "We may not have claws, or psychic weapons, or armor made of stars, but we've got this." He thumped his chest, a refusal to quit. Zyre dropped his weapon. The dome flickered, unstable. I have seen enough, he said. Cooper narrowed his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? Zyre took a knee. Yield silence stretched across the galaxy. From the crew aboard the Resolute to the humans watching in Unity Base. From the orbital feeds of Earth to the hidden eyes of distant species who had never dared to intervene, they all watched as an ancient champion knelt before a battered, bleeding human. You choose survival, Zyre said. Not dominance, you fight for others. This is rare. Cooper stumbled, then dropped to one knee himself. Not in submission but in exhaustion. We fight because we must, he said quietly. Not because we want to. The dome dissolved. Around them, light streaming in. The winds of Gliese 7 calmed. From the edges of the ruins, the rescued colonists stirred, waking slowly. Above, the sky cleared for the first time in days. Tanis's voice came through the coms again. This time it was soft. You did it. Cooper leaned back, looking up into the sky. We all did. And somewhere deep in the cosmos, unseen observers took note. This human, this fragile, breakable creature had stood before extinction and said no. And that changed everything. A war reignited in silence. The sun over Gliese 7 bled through the slowly thinning clouds, casting a warm hue over the fractured ruins. Cooper stood at the edge of the crater where his duel with Zyre had ended, body aching, ribs bruised, and lungs burning but alive. Around him, the colonists who had once been suspended in unnatural stasis were slowly being evacuated, their faces pale but eyes wide with newfound hope. Medics from the Resolute worked in silence, stunned by what had transpired. Zyre, towering and watchful, had not moved far. He stood among the ruins, a silent sentinel watching the humans carry out their rescue. Though wounded, his posture remained proud and broken. Cooper approached, limping slightly. You didn't have to go easy on me back there. Zyre's voice was lower now, almost respectful. I did not. You earned what the HRL once called Zenithal, the warrior's mercy. You fought with heart. And in that, you won. Before Cooper could respond, a sharp tone crackled through his wristcom. Captain Cooper, incoming distress ping from Unity Base, Tanis reported. Her voice had lost the edge of awe, replaced now with urgency. Colonel Gray is requesting immediate return. It's the Junta. They've broken the ceasefire. Cooper's jaw clenched. They waited until we were distracted. He turned back towards Zyre, meeting the alien's sunlit eyes. You came to judge us. Now I ask something more. Zyre tilted his head. What do you seek? A chance to survive, not in a duel but a war. Stand with us. The champion of the extinct HRL paused. I was born for war, but never for another's cause. Then make it yours, Cooper said. The Ginter don't want balance, they want silence. The same silence they left behind in Gliese 7. You saw it, you felt it, we both did. There was a long silence. Zyre's eyes narrowed. I will come, he said finally, not as your savior, but as your equal. Aboard the Resolute, preparations were already underway. As the ship climbed out of Gliese zone's atmosphere, Cooper stood on the bridge flanked by Tanis and Zyre. The crew eyed the alien champion with awe and caution, but no one questioned his presence. ETA to Unity Base, Cooper asked. 6 hours at full burn, Tanis replied. But sir, we just picked up something new. The holographic map of the star systems flickered to life. On it, red icons began to bloom across the void between colonies and me ships. Hundreds, thousands. They're not just attacking Unity Base, she whispered. It's a full-scale assault, coordinated, simultaneous, like they've been planning this for months. Cooper didn't blink. They were waiting for us to be distracted, and I gave them the moment. No, Zyre spoke softly, stepping forward. This was inevitable. Predators do not wait for weakness, they wait for certainty. That certainty now lives in them. Cooper turned to the crew. Send out the rally code. Every ship, every allied colony. Bring them home to Unity. A lieutenant nodded. What's the code phrase, sir? Cooper didn't hesitate. Stand or vanish. The message shot through the stars like a spark across dry grass. That Terran coalition fleets stirred. Emergency jump sequences activated across mining colonies, merchant convoys, outposts hidden in asteroid belts. Unity Base, once a beacon of exploration, was now the line in the sand. As the Resolute hurtled through space, Zyre stood alone in the observation deck, watching the stars pass like streaks of fire. Tanis joined him, arms crossed. Ever seen a war like this? She asked, voice low. I have seen worse, Zyre replied, but never with hope burning this bright in the face of it. Tanis gave him a sidelong glance. You talk like someone who's already chosen a side. Eyes glowed faintly. I have not chosen sides. I have chosen people. Back on Earth, news of the duel and Cooper's victory spread like wildfire. Some doubted the story. Others called it propaganda. But the colonists who had been rescued, people who had seen death held at bay by one man's resolve, became the loudest voices of all. And when Zyre's image appeared alongside Cooper's on every broadcast and relay beacon, the galaxy took notice. This wasn't just a battle, it was a turning point at Unity Base. Colonel Gray watched the skies from the command platform. Explosions rippled in orbit as Allied fighters fended off waves of Jinta scouts. The base, once designed for peaceful diplomacy, had become a fortress. Turrets bristled along its metal walls. Missile platforms rotated with quiet readiness. Cooper better get here fast, Gray muttered from the distance. Light tore through the stars. The Resolute dropped from hyperspace, trailed by half a dozen coalition ships who had intercepted. The rally code mid-jump on its belly was a new emblem, 2 hands clasped, one human, one alien, a symbol of defiance. On the bridge, Cooper stared ahead, his voice sharp and clear. Open wideband. Wideband open, Tanis confirmed. Cooper leaned in. This is Captain Elias Cooper to all defenders of Unity Base. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. We hold the line here, together, no matter what comes. Across Unity Base, troops straightened. Civilians moved faster. Engineers locked in plating and fueled turret lines, and above them, ships began forming a barrier of light and fire in the stars. The war wasn't coming, that it had arrived. And this time, humanity wasn't just surviving. They were ready. When the sky shattered, the sky above Unity Base burned like a forge. Jinta warships descended in tight formations, their jagged hulls humming with crimson energy. Missiles streaked through the clouds, leaving trails of ash and fire in their wake. The orbiting defense satellites flickered as the first wave crashed through their perimeter, and the main shield over the base groaned under the impact of concentrated energy beams. On the command platform, Colonel Gray shouted through the comms, "Rotate shield frequency. Lock batteries on Vector 379. Unity's automated defenses answered like thunder. Plasma bolts screamed skyward, colliding with the incoming ships. The sky cracked open with explosions, shattered metal, trailing fire, and burning wreckage falling toward the Earth like dying stars. Inside the Resolute, Cooper stood steady on the bridge as the ship lurched beneath him, shaking from the pressure of sudden deceleration. The pilot called out, "We're in the thick of it, Captain. Evasive maneuvers engaged." "Good," Cooper said, strapping in as the tactical interface lit up. Time to hit back. Zyre stood behind him, silent as ever, a living statue of war. His eyes followed the storm outside the viewports without blinking. A low vibration hummed from his chest, like the resonance of a living engine charging. Cooper turned. "Zyre, I need more than just your strength. I need to know what the Jinta fear." Zyre's gaze shifted slowly. The Jinta were once hunted by something worse, a mind flayer race called the Vezeran. The Jinta survived by hiding, by studying their enemies until they could mimic their weaknesses. They do not fear strength, they fear unpredictability. Cooper absorbed the information like a sponge, and we give them chaos. The Resolute dived beneath a Ginta frigate, its cannons swinging upward. Cooper's fleet, 6 ships now, for coalition, and 2 independent pirate hunters who had answered the rally streaked into a loose, unpredictable pattern. They darted between enemy ships instead of forming a wall, each taking shots at angles Jinta algorithms couldn't anticipate. From orbit, Unity Base's command center watched the maneuver with awe. "They're not trying to hold the line," a technician whispered. "They're disrupting the pattern." Colonel Gray grinned beneath his cracked helmet. "That's Cooper. He doesn't hold ground. He remakes it." The command tower trembled as a Jinta artillery shell hit the outer wall. Emergency klaxons blared. On the ground, soldiers took positions, barricades formed, auto-turrets spun to life. The walls of Unity Base were alive with preparation. Down in the docking bay, Cooper's elite ground team, the Hammer Burner, assembled around their dropship. Hardened faces, custom gear, unspoken loyalty. "All right," Cooper said as he approached, armor clinking with every step. "The Jinta are trying to punch a hole through the eastern perimeter. If they breach it, they'll flood the central courtyard and tear through the generators." A grizzled Marine named Kato slung his railgun over his shoulder. "So we're stopping the bleeding before the artery bursts." "Exactly," Cooper replied. "We hit them where they're weakest, when they think we're distracted." As the dropship engines roared, Zyre stepped in front of the ramp, barring the way. "Your soldiers are fierce," he said, scanning the team, "but the Ginta will bring a champion of their own. You won't face warriors, you'll face an executioner. Then we need something worse, Cooper said, locking eyes with Zyre. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Zyre stepped aside. We'll walk with you. The dropship tore through the smoke-choked skies, weaving between falling debris. Below, the eastern quadrant of Unity Base was already under sieging to infantry swarming like insects. Their bodies encased in thick, bone-plated armor. Plasma fire streaked through alleyways. Walls exploded inward. Screams echoed over the comms. The ship landed hard in a clearing behind the enemy line. The ramp slammed open. Cooper led the charge. Push forward. Scatter formation. The hammer fanned out, unleashing a storm of suppressing fire. Explosions rocked the field. Zyre stormed through the center, carving a path with sheer kinetic fury. No weapon, just fists and armor. Each strike shattered bone, cracked exoskeletons, sent enemies flying. His roars boomed over the chaos, rattling helmets. Then a ripple of silence spread through the enemy. A massive figure stepped into the smoke, taller than Zyre, broader, its armor decorated with blood-stained glyphs. The Jinta champion, a biotitan fused with organic weaponry, eyes glowing like hellfire. That it stepped toward Cooper. Zyre intercepted. They collided like two collapsing stars. Shockwaves burst outward, tossing debris in all directions. The battlefield around them paused, its humans and Ginta alike watching titans clash. Cooper pressed forward with the squad, weaving through gunfire, taking out turret placements and enemy supply lines. His armor was scratched and dented, but he moved with precision. He didn't need to win the battle alone, he just needed to make space for others to win with him. As Zyre fought blow for blow, Cooper breached the perimeter gate and reactivated the defensive cannons with a manual override. Across the base, the cannons sprang to life, turrets turning, plasma cores igniting. The battlefield shifted. The defenders roared and the Ginta finally began to fall back. Zyre, bleeding from a gash across his chest, stood victorious over the broken champion. You fight well, human, he said, staggering toward Cooper, and you make one hell of a distraction, Cooper replied. Over the comms, Tanis's voice came through again. Captain, you need to see this. We intercepted a new Jinta command transmission. Go ahead. Tanis hesitated. It wasn't about Unity-based. This was just a test. They've found something buried. Coordinates match the ruins on Thalion Prime. Cooper's heart dropped. Pull back, everyone. Secure the base, then prep the fleet. He looked at the stars as if they might answer him. We're not fighting for Unity anymore, he whispered. They've found something worse than us. And as the wounded champion groaned behind them and the last Jinta ship vanished into hyperspace, Cooper knew the real war hadn't even started yet. Shadows beneath Thalion Prime, the light of a dying sun bathed the cracked surface of Thalion Prime in crimson and gold. Once a lush terraformed colony world, it now stood as a haunting shell of what had been a planet abandoned after the Thalion collapse, a mysterious event that had swallowed entire settlements overnight. No one had returned since until now. The Resolute emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge, flanked by a growing armada of coalition ships, old war frigates, converted cargo haulers with cannons strapped to their hulls, even a few rogue trader vessels that had answered the rally call. Cooper stood on the bridge with Zyre at his side, both staring down at the planet that glowed like an ember below. Atmospheric interference is off the charts, Tanis reported from the helm. Massive energy surges underground. And this, she tapped the display, enlarging a faint signal. This matches Jinta command frequency. They're already down there. Cooper's hand tightened on the railing. Whatever they're after, they found it first. Zyre's voice rumbled low. They're not searching. They're waking something. The words chilled the room. Cooper leaned forward, eyeing the signal cluster pulsing from Thalion's equator. What do we know about this sector? A junior analyst flipped through old expedition logs. That was once the site of ruined Theta 3, a pre-Chiral construct. We never identified the creators. The records say the ruins were sealed with quantum locks. Nobody could break in. They didn't need to break in, Zyre said, his tone distant. They just needed time. The Jinta are obsessed with remnants of ascended races. They believe ancient weapons will return them to glory, Tanis added. We've confirmed 3 Ginta excavation teams on the surface, heavily guarded, multiple energy signatures spiking beneath each site. Deploy 3 squads, Cooper ordered. Covert insertion. I want eyes on each dig site. We move before they trigger something we can't stop. Zyre turned toward him. And if it's already too late, Cooper stared at the planet, his voice cold and clear. Then we bury it before it rises. The drop pods launched from the hangar in silence. their exteriors coated with reflective chameleon plating to mask them from scans. As Cooper's pod entered the atmosphere, turbulence slammed into the hull like fists. Dust storms whipped across the barren landscape, the wind screaming through the canyons like voices trapped between dimensions. Inside, the Hammerborn sat in grim silence, their gear checked, their eyes steel. Cooper scanned the terrain through the display-jagged cliffs, metallic spires buried in sand, and in the distance, flickering lights of a Jinta forward base. Touchdown in 10 seconds, the pilot announced. This ride ends at Hell's doorstep. The pod crashed into the sand, sinking slightly before stabilizing. The hatch blew open, and Cooper emerged, rifle drawn. His team followed, spreading out along the ridge. Below them, they saw the towering structure of black stone and alien glyphs, half exposed, surrounded by Jinta tents, machinery, and armored guards. The artifact itself pulsed with a sickening purple light, growing brighter with each passing moment. Report, Cooper whispered into the comms. All teams in position, came the reply from strike leader Rika on the eastern ridge. They're not just digging, they're feeding energy into the structure, some kind of resonance chamber. Same on my end, said LT Vaughn from the southern approach. It's like they're trying to match a frequency. To open something, command, Cooper said. We need immediate orbital scans on this entire sector. Full spectrum. Tanis's voice returned a moment later. Cooper. We're reading a second signal. Beneath the ruins, something buried. Massive. And alive. He glanced at Zyre, who was crouched beside him, staring intently at the glyphs. This isn't HRL design, Zyre muttered. This is older, much older. My people found ruins like this only once in a dead system we never dared enter again. What was inside? Cooper asked. Zyre didn't answer, his eyes glowed faintly. Not what? Who? Suddenly, the ground trembled. The artifact's glow intensified, lightning cracking from its peak and striking the surrounding pylons. The Jinta shouted in excitement, rallying around their commanders. Cooper saw one of the leaders raise a staff etched with runes and plunge it into the core, a scream, not of voice, but of the earth tore through the canyon. Then silence, and then the ground split open. A wave of pure darkness surged upward, consuming the light like a living fog. Figures emerged, slender, armored in obsidian, eyes like empty stars. They hovered above the sand, untouched by gravity. Where they passed, reality bent, time slowed, matter rippled. Zyre breathed. The forgotten architects, this was their vault. They're not dead? Cooper asked. Zyre's voice was a whisper. They were never alive as we understand it. Below, the Jinta fired in panic. Their energy blasts vanished into the dark like pebbles into an ocean. The Niholith didn't attack. They simply observed. And where they observed, Ginta screamed and collapsed, clutching their heads as visions devoured their minds. They're weaponizing thought, Cooper said. Mental warfare. He clicked into wideband. All squads, fall back to rally point Theta. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage. As they retreated up the slope, one of Cooper's soldiers staggered, blood pouring from his nose. They're inside. They're showing me things. Earth. Burning. Cooper grabbed him by the vest. Focus. They're illusions. They're memories, sir, the man cried. From the future, a new message buzzed into Cooper's "Come, Captain," Tanis said, voice thin and distorted. Multiple warp signatures, not ours. They're surrounding Leon. We're being boxed in. Cooper's mind raced. The Ginta hadn't planned to awaken a weapon. They had planned to deliver a key. The sky darkened and more of the Nihaleth emerged from the vault. Cooper raised his eyes. For the first time, fear threatened to win, but he clenched his fists. No, he growled. Zyre stood beside him, light pulsing beneath his armor. What do you command, human? Cooper turned toward his team, toward the rising storm, and toward the fleet hanging on the edge of war. Light the sky, he said. If we're going down, then the galaxy will remember who we were. And with that, the next chapter of the war began, not with battle cries, but with a single defiant flame, flickering in the dark. The fire that refused to die above Thalion Prime. The sky became a battlefield of gods and mortals. The Resolute surged through the darkness, weaving between bursts of enemy fire and arcs of gravitational distortion unleashed by the Nihaleth below. Ancient nightmares floated like phantoms above the desert sands, drawing power from something deep within the vaults of ruined Theta-3. The once silent planet now screamed across every frequency, psychic and physical. On the bridge, Tanis was a blur of motion. Her fingers danced across the control panel, rerouting shield power. deploying decoy drones, and transmitting rally coordinates across the fleet. Her jaw was locked tight, eyes fierce, as alarms blared all around her. "We can't stay in orbit, Captain," she shouted into the com. "They're disrupting gravitational fields. Our drives won't hold much longer." "Then get us slower," Cooper's voice growled through the static, issuing from a dust-coated field transmitter on the surface. "I need a hot pickup in Zone Delta." Zyre stood beside Cooper, the alien champion, breathing heavily, his armor scorched from combat. Behind them, the Hammerborn formed a defensive line around their wounded, firing at advancing Jinta units. Though many Jinta had been slaughtered by the awakening Holloth, some had survived and now moved like zealots possessed, their eyes glowing with the same hollow void as their new masters. A mortar blast ripped through the ridge above Cooper, showering the team with debris. One Marine screamed, clutching his leg where shrapnel burned red. Medics dragged him back behind a barricade, fashioned from broken drone parts. Zyre took a step forward and hurled a cracked Jinta turret at the advancing enemy line. It exploded in a flash of light and flame. The remaining Jinta fell back. "They weren't retreating, they're stalling," Cooper muttered. "They're buying time for the Holloth for the gate," Zyre corrected, his voice grim. "This vault was never a prison. It was a door, and it's almost open." Cooper tapped his helmet. "Come again, Tarnus. Status." "We're almost above your position," she replied. "But the gravitational distortion is pulling us down. I'm fighting the ship to keep us from tearing apart." "You've got 1 minute," Cooper said, then turned to his team. "Anyone still standing, get the wounded ready. We're lifting out or dying on this hill." Above them, the Resolute burst through the clouds like a wounded beast, plasma trails burning at her sides. Dropships broke from her underbelly, thrusters glowing blue as they descended into the chaos. One exploded mid-air caught in a Nihileth psychic burst, but 2 more made it through. As Cooper's squad moved to the landing zone, something changed. The light vanished, not darkness but absence, like a hole had been torn in the very fabric of reality. The ground trembled as a rift opened above the artifact. Tendrils of shadow snaked out, pulling chunks of earth into the void. And then, from the other side, a figure stepped through. It was no Haleth. It was something else, tall, skeletal, its form shifting between dimensions like it couldn't decide which one to exist in. Its face was a mask of starlight, and its hands glowed with the same purple energy as the ruins. Zyre dropped to one knee, not in reverence, but recognition. "The first," he said, "the architect of the Nihileth. It has returned." Cooper didn't blink. "Can we kill it?" "No," Zyre said, rising. "But we can stop it from finishing." The architect raised one hand, and reality bent. Suddenly, Cooper was somewhere else, not physically, but in his mind. Images flooded him, earth burning, oceans boiling, his friends screaming in silence. He saw humanity wiped clean from the stars, nothing left but ash and forgotten songs. But then, a different vision. Children laughing, a future rebuilt, a galaxy, where the word human meant hope. Cooper's heartbeat thundered. He reached for the vision, not to believe it, but to fight for it. His voice returned, defiant and clear. "Get out of my head." The illusion shattered. He was back on the battlefield. Zyre stood between him and the architect, shielding him from another mental strike. "They can show you what might be," Zyre said, "but they cannot steal your will unless you surrender it." Cooper looked to his squad, half standing, half bleeding, but every one of them ready to fight. "No surrender," he muttered. The dropships finally touched down. "Go," Cooper ordered. "Get the wounded out first." As the ramps lowered, enemy fire intensified. The Ginta, now completely enslaved to the will of the architect, charged in twisted formations. Their weapons no longer fired standard plasma. They burned with a sickly light that drained power. The Hammerborn laid down covering fire as the wounded were loaded. Zyre fought like a force of nature, ripping apart machines and warriors alike, refusing to let them breach the perimeter. Cooper climbed aboard last, blood on his armor, eyes locked on the rift that still pulsed above the vault. As the ship lifted, he could feel the pull the way it whispered promises in the bones of the world. "Close it," he ordered, "whatever it takes." Tanis's voice crackled back. "We're already moving." The fleet in orbit, once on the defensive, shifted into a new pattern. Under Tanis's command, the ships moved into triangulated positions around the energy pulse. A signal burst echoed through space. Coordinates locked. Detonation sequence initiated. Cooper stood at the rear of the ship, staring down as glowing lines of energy laced across the landscape, converging on the vault. The Resolute's primary core detached and remotely piloted plummeted, like a comet, into the rift. Zyre turned his head slightly. Will it be enough? Kubrick said nothing. Then light erupted, not from fire but from force. A tidal wave of gravity and light collapsed the vault inward. The architect shrieked a sound that bypassed ears and hit straight into the solas. It was pulled back into the breach. The world groaned beneath their ship as the surface cracked, the rift collapsing in on itself, and then it was over. The dropship rose into a sky. Cleansed of darkness, Cooper collapsed into a seat, exhausted, armor scorched and mind-wringing. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. They had stopped the gate from opening, but they hadn't won, not yet. Prepare the fleet, he muttered. If the architect had one gate, it has more. Zyre leaned forward, eyes glowing softly, and when they open, Cooper's stare burned like steel. Then we do what humans always do. He gripped the bulkhead, steadying himself as the ship soared toward the stars. We adapt, we fight, and we never stop. Humanity's final flamey cold silence drifted across the remains of the Thalian system, where once the vault pulsed with ancient power, there now lay a shattered wound in the crust of the planet's scorched black, smoking, and sealed. Above it, the Resolute hung in low orbit, damaged but defiant, a symbol of the battle just survived. But in deep space, far beyond any star system mapped by human hands, things had begun to move. The architect's death cry had not gone unnoticed. In the void beyond time, in the corners of space that even light feared to pass, they had awakened others like it, older than empires, more alien than thought, and now they turned their gaze to the one species that had defied them. Humanity. Humanity Base's central command chamber. A hush had fallen over the gathered leaders. Holographic images flickered above the war table, thousands of new anomalies, lighting up distant systems, gravity spikes, mass shadows, psychic interference. It was like the universe was holding its breath before something immense arrived. Cooper stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, face drawn but sharp with focus. His armor was still scuffed from Talion. His mind was not rested, not recovered, but neither was the fight. Tanis entered, carrying a tactical slate. We've confirmed for new vault sites, spread across 3 sectors, all showing similar energy signatures. Growing, Zyre stood beside her, arms folded across his armored chest. They are staging, preparing to reclaim what they once ruled. A murmur rippled through the room. Alien delegates leaned in, whispering in their own languages. One voice, sharp, skeptical, cut through. How do we know the humans didn't cause this? It was the Valari Chancellor, eyes narrow and accusing. The architect's power was dormant for centuries. Then your kind touches it and all of this follows. Cooper didn't flinch. We didn't cause it, but we sure as hell woke it up. And now we're the only ones who've faced it and survived. And you propose what? The Chancellor scoffed. That we let humanity lead a war against gods? No, Cooper said, stepping forward. I propose we stand together, because if we don't, none of us will be left to argue about blame. He tapped a control. The room dimmed and the star map filled the air, showing waves of movement converging on the known galaxy like a cosmic tide. We've analyzed the frequency the architect used to open the gate, Tanis explained. Every vault pulses with a variation of it, but each is slightly out of sync. Yet a soft gasp spread. We've got one chance, Cooper said. We disrupt them before they sink. One fleet, one mission. We take the fight to them, not in defense, but to shut every gate forever. An offensive strike. Another voice echoed. With everything we've got, Tanis said. If even one gate opens fully, we may never get a second shot. The room remained silent. Then Zyre spoke, his deep voice slow and deliberate. Your kind are fire, burning, too bright to last. But perhaps that is the answer. A fire that refuses to die. And slowly, one by one, the delegates nodded. The fleet that gathered at Unity's edge was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Not just humans and the Thene, but Valari, Draxon, Eurythi, even the once hostile Siren had answered the call. Ships of every shape and size, sleek daggers, lumbering beasts, and living vessels grown from coral and bone merged into one armada under a single banner. Survival. At its center flew the Resolute, rebuilt, reinforced, carrying the spark that had started it all. In the hangar, Cooper stood before his squad, the Hammerborn, now joined by alien warriors, pilots, and technicians. Everyone wore the same insignia on their chest, a star wrapped in flame, a symbol of defiance. Some of you, he said, never fought for Earth. Some of you never believed in humanity. But today, none of that matters. He looked into every face. Because when the vaults open, they won't care who you were, only what you are. And we are the last wall between what's left of life and the dark. He paused, then raised his weapon high. So we hold, and we burn, and we show them what it means to fight. The mission was simple in design, near impossible in execution. Each strike team would jump to a separate vault site to destroy the relay pylons that fed the gate's energy, then withdraw before the vault could react. Fast, surgical, and relentless, Cooper's team would take the worst of them. Vault Sigma, located in a dead solar system wrapped in temporal distortion, where time moved like smoke and light bent unnaturally. The jump was violent. The Resolute emerged into a black space riddled with debris-shattered moons and fractured planets caught in silent orbit. The vault floated at the center, tethered to nothing. Its architecture defied logic, spinning geometrically in ways that made the eyes water. The ship shook as the vault reacted, tendrils of raw gravity lashing out. Deploy now, Tanis yelled. Drop. Pods launched, spiraling toward the impossible structure. Cooper's hit hard, and the moment he stepped out, the world shivered. Every step echoed backward, every breath took twice as long. But he moved forward, his team followed. Zyre strode at the front, guiding them with ancient instincts. The vault's interior pulsed with light and voice. Not sound, but thoughts. Whispers. That offered power, peace, godhood. But the team kept moving, weapons hot. Cooper planted the first charge. Then the second. At the third, something moved. Not a soldier, not a creature, but a presence. It stepped forward, faceless, enormous. The echo of the architect that had fallen, a mirror perhaps, or a memory. You cannot undo the design. It spoke in a voice like dying suns. We don't need to undo it, Cooper said, placing the final charge. We just need to break it. The entity lunged out, but Cooper hit the detonator. The explosion tore through the vault energy conduits, unraveling. Outside, the other teams succeeded in sequence. Vault after vault burst like dying stars, their gates collapsing in on themselves. At the final vault, something tried to break through. A scream echoed across the galaxy, but the combined fleet fired in unison, and silence fell. Later, in the quiet of Unity's rebuilt command tower, Cooper stood alone, watching stars glint through reinforced glass. Ships moved like fireflies below, soldiers laughing, repairing, living. Zyre joined him. We closed the doors, Cooper said. But the dark is still out there. Zyre nodded. Then let it come. Now it knows. That flame does not fear the void. They stood in silence for a long time. Then Cooper spoke. We weren't meant to survive this. No, Zyre said. You were meant to show the stars how to live. And across the galaxy, where hope had once flickered, humanity burned like a beacon, unbreakable, unyielding, and unforgettable. The fire had not gone out.